G'day guys, Luke here from Tech Blokes, and iOS 13 Beta 7 is officially available to download as a developer tester and should hopefully be available within the next week or so as a public beta tester. Now there are a whole heap of changes and bug fixes that Apple has released. There's a lot of changes with haptic feedback and 3D touch and moving between applications and shortcuts. So guys, the actual update to go from Beta 6 to Beta 7 is a fairly small one. On the iPhone SE here, which we're going to be using today, you're looking at 309 meg, and it ranges, depending on the device, from about 250 meg to about 350 meg. Obviously, there's different changes for different devices. Alrighty guys, so on Beta 6, there was actually a function on the home screen where you could use 3 fingers and do a tap, and it would actually open up a small menu up the top here. Now, I would say that Apple has actually done away with that because it's no longer available in Beta 7. And the real reason is it was kind of annoying if you use certain applications that had a 3-finger touch functionality. So, for example, if you're a gamer and you're playing PUBG, there is a whole heap of graphics applications. Procreate, for example, when you use 3 fingers, that's actually an undo function. So there would have been a lot of people that would have been finding that very annoying actually. So that's no longer available from the home screen. Some apps still have it. I noticed that Notes, if you go into Notes and you use 3 fingers in there, it will still work to bring up that little shortcut menu up the top there. Now, also on the home screen is a couple of minor changes to folders and how they look. So in the last beta, the actual folder themselves was a bit more translucent, so you could kind of see through them a bit more. Now they're kind of grayed out, and you know, it's a bit darker. It makes everything sort of a bit easier to read, in my opinion. All right guys, now getting into dark mode, swiping up from the home screen here, holding on the actual brightness, this has actually changed. The naming has changed here. It now just says dark mode on, whereas before it actually had appearance/dark when you would go in here. So that's changed. I think dark mode, in my opinion, is much easier for people to understand. So I'm glad that Apple has changed that. And you can obviously still change the brightness by swiping up and down. So one other thing I've also noticed, guys, in the settings, when you go into the wallpaper section, and go into choose wallpaper, the dynamic wallpapers have come back. There was a bit of a bug there with Beta 6 where they didn't show up properly. So they are now back. They work exactly as you would think they would work. You get these nice little moving bubbles that come up on the screen when you go in there. Also going into the stills, you'll notice that some of the wallpapers actually have this little icon, which indicate that you can turn on the motion when you move your screen. That's actually was in the previous beta, and you can now turn that on and off if you don't like that sort of movement. Now what I've also noticed is using the haptic feedback on the home screen, or if you've got 3D touch on your device, obviously the SE doesn't have that, but when you hold, you now have rearrange apps up the top of the screen. So that's kind of like the default option, which is good in a lot of ways. Obviously on the settings here, you can get the battery, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. And depending on which row of apps you bring that shortcut menu up on, it's either going to appear at the top half of the screen or the bottom half. So if we go to the third row, we'll go to Notes. You can see that that's now going to the bottom of the screen, whereas before it was going to the top. There was a bit of an overlap and things were a little bit clunky. Also, certain apps like the settings one here, you can see it's got the 2 badge on it. These were kind of hidden. That 2 would actually go behind this little pop-out menu here. That is now appearing over the top of the pop-out menu. Now, the mail application is obviously one that all of us use, and this was kind of pretty buggy, to be honest, in a lot of the older iterations and the betas that we had available. It is now much smoother. It doesn't appear to be crashing. You can scroll and do everything else like you normally would. And I just think the whole application has received a lot of love from Apple. It definitely feels a lot smoother. Everything loads quickly. Not that I had any major issues, but every now and again it just kind of bugged out. So they've definitely made a lot of improvements in the mail application since the last beta. Now, obviously I'm using the dark mode, And one of the things I noticed with my iPhone SE, which has typically got a really good battery life really suffered with beta 6. So I'm going to try it out for the next couple of days and see how the battery life goes, and I'm hoping there are a lot of improvements in that department. Alright guys, one other thing I've noticed, and this is a really weird one, is the keyboard has some weird sounds going on. So the actual normal key sound is there, but it's either really quiet, or it's a normal key sound, or it's really loud. So I'm hoping they fix that. It's a bit of a weird one. I don't know what's happening there, but I'm sure that will get fixed in the next iteration in beta 8. Now jumping into the App Store, when you go in there and you look at the apps, I've noticed, depending on what device you're using, sometimes the icons actually appear in a fairly low res. So if you're using like a newer device like an iPhone XS or a XS Max, these have actually been quite pixelated and hard to read. Obviously here on my iPhone SE, they look totally normal, but yeah, if you're using a newer device, you will notice that these don't look as good as what they normally. Now, one of the main things, and probably the most improved thing out of this whole beta, is the actual haptic feedback shortcut menus. So previously with 3D Touch and haptic feedback, actually getting that menu to come up was kind of a bit slow. And I feel like Apple has realized that and made that improvement to now make those menus pop up a lot quicker. So just holding and getting to these is much faster. If you've got 3D Touch, it'll be even quicker because you can obviously apply pressure to get that menu to come up. But I've just noticed, just using the iPhone SE, getting into these new little sub menus is much quicker. Now, one of the other things in Photos, when you get to the all photo screen here, you now have the ability to pinch and zoom in and out. The default one here is actually just like 3 rows, and you can now pinch and zoom out to see far more images when you're swiping through your photos. Now, in my opinion, that's very Android, but it's actually a very welcome feature. I use that all the time on my Google Pixel. So I'm glad that Apple has brought that through with the new release of beta 7. All right guys, if you are a Safari user, when you go in and create a new window now, you'll notice that if you're in private mode, the actual search bar at the top here is now grayed out. That's just a reminder, very much like what we'd have with incognito mode in Chrome, and that's definitely a welcome addition with beta 7 as well. Now with beta 6, when you went into settings and went to wallpapers, there was a new option here where it says dark appearance dims the wallpaper. What I have noticed is in the last beta, in beta 6, this would actually like change the contrast of the wallpaper. Whereas now when you have a dark wallpaper enabled, it actually just dims the whole screen. I think it's a better iteration this time around. I feel like the last one, they were still trying to work out what they were actually doing with that new dark wallpaper mode. I hope that that'll improve battery. Only time will tell if that is definitely going to do that for us. Now guys, there is one last feature I want to talk about, and this is a really cool one if you listen to a lot of local radio stations. So inside the music app, we have the ability now to go into radio, and you can actually play local radio stations in your area. So if I just jump in, go into the search bar, type in Triple J, which is a local radio station here in Australia, very popular. It will come up with the station, and there we go, it starts playing straight away. All right guys, so the last little minor change I want to talk about is when you take a screenshot. So on the iPhone SE, obviously it's the home button and the lock button. When you do that and you go into the actual screenshot, there was a bit of a weird resizing function that happened previous beta 6. That doesn't happen now. It just automatically sizes to the right size, and you can go in and do your editing like you normally would. And just before we go guys, I just want to say a huge thank you. We've just reached 1,000 subscribers on the channel, and I'm really appreciative to everyone that has subscribed, left comments, and given me some feedback about how the channel is going. So guys, if you're enjoying the videos, please make sure you drop a comment below, hit the like button and subscribe. It really does help me out, and it helps the channel grow. And I'm very appreciative of everyone who has already done that already. All right guys, we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.